welcome back to the Elevate podcast, your inside look at what's really changing in behavioral health, from admissions to outcome. In a space where patient acquisition costs can range from $3,000 to $10,000 per admission, many facilities still lack clear visibility into what's truly driving admissions. And that's exactly what we're unpacking today. In this episode, we're diving into the foundations of marketing attribution. What should you be tracking, how to align marketing with admissions, and how to make smarter, data-driven decisions that improve ROI and census growth. Joining us today is Bryan McKinstry, lead of strategic partnerships at CTM. Bryan works closely with behavioral health facilities of all ranges and sizes with implementing call tracking, attribution models, and admissions intelligence, helping teams move from beyond vanity metrics and focus on what actually matters, driving qualified inquiries, conversions, admissions, and census growth. Welcome to the show, Bryan.
Hey, Gary. Thanks for having me. Good to see you. How we doing?
We're doing great, thanks. I've been eager to have this conversation today. You and I speak on an ongoing basis, and I know you guys are cooking so many new things, so our audience is going to benefit a whole lot from our conversation today. So excited to dive into everything. Why don't you give our listeners today a little background on yourself and your role at CTM?
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I've been with CTM for about 2.5 years now. So I'm the lead of strategic partnerships. So really kind of focus on 3 different types of partners that we work with here at CTM. Integration partners, so typically EMRs, EHRs, other CRMs that we play well with and share data back and forth. Referral partners, which are typically folks like yourselves that are either agencies or consultants and don't have a direct commercial relationship with CTM, but their clients do. They typically help with the setup, configuration, more of the consulting role on how to better optimize their CTM account. And then agency partners. So we work with a ton of agencies that, is kind of that one-to-many approach. And yeah, working with folks like you, love it.
Likewise, you're crushing it. I mean, for context, for the listeners today, I think I worked with CTM for 15 years now with prior relationships as well. And a thing or two about channel sales. And I remember when first engaging through Elevate with CTM, the partner program was not even remotely close to what you have built it to now with all the partner portal and the visibility to support collateral. And most importantly, every time we bring a facility on your platform, that white glove service of setting them up is just stellar. So thank you for that. Thank you for helping us help clients and folks get connected to the care they deserve. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
I was actually just looking at your portal before we jump on board. And I think it's about a year ago, we made a true commitment to CTM. Before that, as you know, we were working with facilities and they might come from CallRail, for example, another call analytics platform in the market, or any other platform. And back then, we were not as firm on our approach as we are. We would work with several different call analytics providers. But about a year ago, we said, no, we're getting married with CTM because it is the superior platform. And I saw that we actually collaborated on bringing 23 new facilities onto your platform that now has data integrity and visibility from a marketing standpoint. But when looking back at these 23 recent facilities we brought on and your overall experiences in the market, what would you say is some of the blind spots or the operational mistakes that folks, when they walk into getting call analytics in place?
Yeah, I think a big one is with a lot of these facilities that either don't have an internal marketing team, they're using agencies like Elevate to kind of help bridge the gap and really be the subject matter experts when it comes to the CTM setup. And I'd say a common theme we hear is just one, poor understanding of which marketing channels are driving patient acquisition. So of the marketing campaigns and the marketing channels that the facility's logo is kind of listed and the phone number's listed, they have no idea where these patients are finding them. And what CTM is doing is really just kind of pinpointing, hey, which marketing campaigns are working, which ones aren't, which ones are leading to intakes, and where you guys need to potentially add additional resources.
Yeah, we see that every day, and that is why we make it a contractual requirement. You want to work with Elevate, you're going to have to adopt to CTM because of the automations, and we've done with dashboard reporting or Google Ads optimization and just making sure that when we get a qualified inquiry, that data is visible across all platforms so better decisions can be made. Speaking of better decisions, very often when we bring on customers, I see campaigns and a marketing agency has set up something like a conversion feeding back to Google or whichever platform is a call over 60-second duration. What are your thoughts on a setup like that, and how would you recommend it should be? Is that an outdated approach?
I mean, it can vary, right? I think for us, it's 3 or 4 key points here. One is really just understanding how patients are searching for care, what type of care they're seeking, and why they're choosing one facility and one center over another. Simply just looking at the call duration and the call length is kind of ignoring the call quality. So we always say call length doesn't necessarily attribute to a successful call. Long calls don't necessarily indicate an efficient call and doesn't necessarily assess the fit between the patient themselves and the services that this facility might be offering. And then there's no real visibility into patient enrollment or time to enrollment or actually connecting those calls to the actual results. So overall, when we're looking at the call length, it's not necessarily attributing the conversations and the quality to a conversion.
No. You're preaching to the choir. I love it. I think it's contextual, like that, understanding the quality of that lead, but also understanding the context and the path to admission. That's what I really love about your platform, and let the data guide the decisions in terms of sometimes on surface, a channel may not seem profitable or contributing towards census growth, but it's actually an important touch point throughout the research journey.
100%.
A credibility factor that has been viewed someplace. So I love that the depth that the call analytics platform brings to the table. Speaking on that, and maybe that's a little leading, why do you think call analytics, and obviously your bias, why is it an absolute requisite for a marketing foundation in the future?
I mean, from my perspective, it's being able to maximize that marketing budget and the intakes that are coming in, especially as well as I do. A lot of these facilities don't necessarily have the largest budget. You can pinpoint where those intakes are coming from based on the call, based on whatever marketing source that they found the facility. These intakes are expensive, right? Treatment itself is expensive. So, they want to make sure that if they're spending money on marketing campaigns, it's driving patient acquisition.
Absolutely. And I think, so for me, when I'm having conversations with prospective clients, I think the ones that gravitate towards Elevate, they've either heard about our ROI focus, our data-driven approach to everything, and that resonates with them. So for me, I always feel it's easy speaking to the CMO, right? And understanding from executive level, you understand the ROI between the campaigns and the platforms and budget allocation. But then you got several stakeholders in the organization. Another important department, of course, is the admissions team, right? That are using the platform and rating calls, etc. Where is there maybe a gap that you see between the admissions and marketing teams, and is there certain recommendations that can help bridge that gap to make sure that it's one uniformed system in place?
I think in any organization, right, whether it's sales and marketing or product and marketing or admissions and marketing, there's not necessarily always going to be everyone on the same page. I think admissions needs to understand where marketing is placing their dollars to find patients. And I think that everybody kind of uses CTM, and different departments use CTM in different ways. So I think it can really vary. And I think everybody should be involved in some capacity, whether you're in a different role within the CTM platform, but every department should be included at the very least.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What I typically do, to your point, I love it as an operational tool. And we'll get a little bit into like the best fit and sizes departments and how it differs from other telephony systems. But when I speak with the admissions team, which is like, oh, now this scary guy is coming in and telling us to do our job this way and the extra administrative burden, I'm always like, help us help you. Like, tell us the quality of leads.
Yeah.
Like, you don't like to go back to back on calls or getting spam or getting, if you're a commercial facility, focused facility, you get a lot of Medicaid calls. Like, help us send the right message to the right people at the right time when they're looking for help. Let us qualify you. And that can only happen by that collaboration between marketing and admissions. And then it connects. And I think that buy-in, from my experience, is absolutely critical for the success of the CTM adoption. Tell us a little bit. Like I can speak to, of course, but I can talk all day. But let's hear it from you instead. What separates CTM from other call analytics platforms in the market?
So customization is probably far and away number one. I think the cool thing about CTM is Todd and Lori Fisher, they started this in 2011. So we're at 15 years that we've been up and running. And, you, Gary, and the Elevate team have been some of the early adopters and have probably been working with Todd for a long time. They're still very involved in the platform. Todd's the CEO, Lori's the COO, still very involved in the day-to-day operations. We take customer feedback very seriously. So it's not beyond Todd to hear a customer or hear a partner say, hey, it would be really neat, or what CTM might be missing. Bring that to him, and he may build it over the weekend. We'll come in on Monday and he'll go, hey, this is live. Go test it out. And, sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, Todd, like we've got so many other things going on and now we have to push this too. But it's great. And the collaboration between teams, bar none, one of the best environments I've been a part of. But we see a lot of folks that come to us from other call tracking providers that essentially outgrow the system. There are other providers out there that are very good in their specific niches. We do it all, and I feel like we do it all pretty well. But if you're looking for customization, if you have multiple facilities, if you have a pretty in-depth call tree or in-depth routing, a lot of folks will leave those platforms and come to us. So if you are on one of those systems and you do want to have a demo, feel free to let me know. I'll get you to one of our account executives. Always got a plug.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, no, I remember all the way back. You mentioned it was like when I first was called Dialogue Tech. It was Mongoose Metrics. There was like, it was like this back in the days when I was preaching call analytics, and it was like, this is why you got to rate calls and we get the calculated return. And now it's just, I think it's a blatant mistake if you're really running a marketing program, and especially when I see facilities spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Gary, we've got CTM, but they don't have it set up with the right framework. It's not integrated with all the right platforms. And essentially, they're kind of using a hope strategy with the marketing agencies that's telling them. And me as an executive of a facility, I would want to know those metrics. I would want it in my scorecard and be the deciding factors for when we're having quarterly reviews or whatever it is. And on that note, I know that when you said customization, that's particularly what I like. Your API connections and native is second to none. We use it a lot for instance, for Google Ads. And I even tell folks to default, we use the CTM to pass back information in platform, because you don't lose the click ID at the same level. If you do it with another platform, I've seen it break all the time. Or if you connect it directly with Salesforce, it's not as consistent and reliable as CTM. And that's what I really like about CTM. Maybe you can speak a little bit on common integrations with which tech stack, and what do you recommend as for like the out-of-the-box integration, so to speak, for the facility?
I think our largest integrations in general are going to be your Salesforce, your HubSpot, your Google, more specifically to your backend and essentially your nucleus of your facility. So the EMRs, the EHRs, we have integrations with pretty much all of them and constantly building. We actually just brought a new team member onto the partnerships team, Luke. So if you guys are partners of CTM, you'll get introduced to Luke in our next newsletter. But he's actually going to be leading the charge on new product builds, new integration builds, and kind of managing those projects. But yeah, I mean, your Kipus, your Sunwaves, your Lightning Steps, Dazos, Aliva, those are some of the big ones that we have integrations with and love working with the teams over there.
Absolutely. I think that it's an important element that it's integrated. You don't need to make a Zapier or other approach to it's key that it's natively integrated and can be configured appropriately. And that's kind of like our default to it, and ensuring that, for instance, I think having that visibility that the EHR, et cetera, is connected. So you understand, what does your bedboard look like? Do you have scheduled admissions, and how can that feedback loop go back from operational standpoint back to the front end to know now we got to ramp up the budget slightly with a expected cost per admission in order to fill those extra beds. And there's little details sometimes that what can go from make you profitable to just break even. Is that that almost like not predictive analytics, but being proactive about the marketing strategy. We find that very, very helpful. So let's pretend for a second that I'm a facility owner out there working with CallRail or whichever platform it may be, and I'm considering to implement CTM. What are some of the important considerations to make or steps to take in your viewpoint, besides calling Elevate?
Yeah. So, I mean, first things first is just getting your tracking numbers in place. One is just, purchasing those tracking numbers and adding them to your marketing campaigns. That's where Elevate comes in. That's where you guys do a great job of, when you bring us a new client, they get their onboarding directly through CTM, but Elevate does a great job of really providing that kind of white glove service of getting your tracking numbers set up to the right campaigns so that you can understand where those marketing dollars are best spent. So that's first and foremost, kind of step one. And then typically what we recommend is, hey, let's get on a call and kind of talk through who on your team, who in your facility would be handling phone calls, which departments, which individuals, and really just kind of help you map out what that phone tree, what that call tree looks like, so that we're getting patients to the right person right away. The biggest thing we see, especially in the behavioral health space, is when people are calling, they're vulnerable and they're looking to get help ASAP. It's a pretty small window from when they pick up the phone, when they say enough is enough and I need help, getting them to the right person immediately. So the less delays that you can provide, whether it be putting folks on hold or bouncing them between departments or phone trees, the better.
I'm so glad you said that. I've had so many discussions with facilities and we'd like press 1 for this, press 2 is like, you're spending a fortune on marketing. Let's just dial them straight into the admissions team. Yeah. I mean, look at it like you don't call 911 and start filling out a questionnaire either, right? So, I love that you said that. So you touched upon a lot of different, very good considerations, by the way. One thing that also comes up a lot I hear is who should own CTM? So this platform comes on, is it marketing? Is it IT? Is it admissions team?
It's going to be everybody. Again, as I kind of mentioned before, the marketing team is going to use CTM differently than the intake does. So I think having all of those kind of key stakeholders involved from Jump Street is the best path forward. You can set up within CTM different roles based on your department or based on how you're going to be interacting with the system. Short answer is everybody that's going to be interacting.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And
I mean, I was going to say, when you guys are first having conversations with those clients, what's your recommendation? Obviously, you guys are handling a lot of the attribution. Do you find it more beneficial to kind of do that through the marketing team, or are you guys working with the intake folks as well?
We work very closely with the intake folks. We have the first month of client onboarding, besides all the research, onboarding and audit and strategy. We have a whole session with the admissions team. I call it admissions enablement to set the structure in place, explain the systems, justify or convince, get buy-in to the lead rating system, show them where they can see the data in the dashboards, answer questions, because to your point, it's a difficult. You're not signing up for some subscription, Netflix, or purchasing a product. It's your life, it's health, it's emotional. So they may reach out, there may be several touch points, and then the stage of the lead converts into opportunity. That's a viable opportunity because they got the right insurance. So how do we update the systems and explaining the value of doing that? So we work very closely with them, and I feel if it becomes a marketing, then it's this isolated approach, and we're talking and how important that is. But I think it starts from the top. And I was when I talk with the owner, I said listen, we're going to take care of everything from a marketing standpoint. You'll have everything set up with an Elevate stamp of approval. It's working, his case studies to support it. But I don't just want you should invest somebody in-house, and we take a trainer approach. You should look at this as an operational software. Who's going to manage it? It's silly to call me when you get a new employee and need to change the IVR, or you're deciding to open a facility. You use it the same way, and you're navigating your operation and have that tool. Then we can support with the analytics aspect and integrating with all the different platforms. And I think that goes the long way. And then the biggest point is the executives is this is essentially understanding a very big expense line on your P&L and your marketing and your BD team, and all that's kind of connected. So is your alumni coordinator, are they using CTM to follow up on discharged patients? How many touch points is there? What's the length of the conversation? How do they rate the patient experience? How many referrals do they get? the business development team? How many touch points did they have with non-reciprocal partnerships? Are they following up? Are they nurturing? Or is it like, yeah, I did my job, but they're sitting at the beach for 2 hours? And then that missions team, how effective are they? How many follow-ups do they do? So I think it sits across the line. As an executive, I would put full focus on it. Explaining that helps a lot, because in the past, the first mistakes we made was, they signed up for marketing. It's a marketing tool. It's a marketing software, and Elevate will take care of it. So shifting the mindset to this is an operational tool has helped us a lot, I would say. This is particularly with smaller facilities. Maybe that's a good segue. I wanted to talk a little bit about the larger facilities, like how a multi-location 200-bed facility with different levels of care, different locations across US, how can they leverage CTM?
So we work with pretty much the gambit, right? Between like a one location facility all the way up to the multi-facility, multi-state, type of operations. I'd say the biggest difference between those two, right, and kind of how they interact with CTM is one, just the sheer amount of campaigns that they're running. Obviously, a smaller facility with a smaller budget is going to have less campaigns. Their facility is going to show up in less places across the internet versus maybe a larger facility that does have a budget for a number of campaigns, both offline, online. And that can be anything from Google Business Profile or your SEO, or are they running ads at all? And lack of budget, realistically, is probably the biggest thing between the larger facilities and the bigger facilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I was smiling because I have some scenarios where like I'm trying to reduce costs and it's going to cost extra. And I'm like, you're paying pennies on the dollar to understand all this marketing and labor cost and software and in terms of what's actually moving the needle. So I would say probably the most important investment. And of course, being able to interpret that into actionable data. So speaking of that, any best practices or things to avoid when implementing CTM? And maybe I can frame that conversation by, we just took on a client, for instance, and they're multi-location and they've been in business and they're very savvy for years, but it was almost like a jungle of phone numbers. So you can go very granular. You can also have a overall view. What's your opinion on an ideal structure?
So what I would say, and it's funny you say this because I literally remember the conversation that we had 2 weeks ago with one of your clients, the crawl, walk, run approach, right? You can use CTM for a number of different feature functionality. You can use this as your call center. You can use this as your dialer in addition to the attribution. But you don't need to do it all at once, right? You can pick and choose. That's the great thing about CTM is we're kind of a pay-as-you-go type of solution. So you pay for what you use. If you're only using us for attribution and you're comfortable with your phone system, we don't want to pull you away from that. Eventually, it might make sense from a financial and logistical standpoint to kind of bring everything under one roof. But you can use us in different capacities. And I would say dip your toe in the sand, get comfortable with the platform. And then the best thing that we can hear is a client, and we hear it all the time, is a client saying, I didn't know you guys could do that. And then we say, yeah, of course we can. And then we can have that conversation, right, of, well, what are you using today, right? How can we make your life and your operation just smoother?
Yeah. We are creatures of habit. It's never easy to shift to a new platform. But it helps when you show the case study in the promised land in terms of, I think, and that's what I was referring to, the different departments and the perceived value per department. What are they trying to accomplish? And how will this tool help them accomplish that goal? One thing that I think we would talk a lot about marketing, attribution, analytics. I think from an operational standpoint, obviously, there's a ton of different platforms out there in the market. I'm a big fan now of less is more, right? Less platforms, because the training, the adoption, shifting from one UI to another, or integrating and ensuring, that's a hell of a lot of work too. A few features that I like a lot about your platform that we maybe is still related is like the transcript functionality. I see many admissions teams really work with that. They can get a quick overview. They can leverage it for analytics. The forms. We have a lot of clients that come with, there's a ton of different forms in the market, but I like that it works. Most folks want to get people on the phone, right? Facilities come to me and they say, can you help me get more phone calls, Gary? Yes, I can. Don't worry. But then they have a form fill on the website or a chatbot. And then 40% of calls, potential calls, are cannibalized by extra form fills. Then the action, the lead to speed is actually a very important metric. It's like from the minute you submit a form, like you spoke about the emotional state you're in when you're looking for recovery.
100%.
Capturing that moment or not going on, moving on to the next facility and losing the opportunity is so critical. And many platforms I've seen, I've even on calls with clients and I submit the form while we're on the I'm like just waiting for somebody to call, and not even during the status call, they're calling me back, or they're like 30 minutes, excuse me, I'm just getting a call back from your team and everybody's looking at me. I was testing the form. That took 30 minutes. What I love about CTM is the functionality that submit the form pops up right in the overview, even with a ring and notification. I mean, simplicity in that sense, but really reduces the lead to speed approach. I think that's one of the things that few folks know about, because not everybody's ready to have a phone call. It could be too intrusive. What are your thoughts on those two? Is there any other features of your platform that you would like to highlight, just from looking at your directive admissions, like what kind of tool software, besides understanding the marketing ROI, is valuable to highlight?
I mean, I think you brought up a good point there. On the form fill side, the one feature that I think is super beneficial is, to the earlier point, when somebody's calling in, they're vulnerable. And if you can kind of capture that moment where they're ready to seek treatment, they're ready to come in and better themselves, you got to take advantage of it. So the form fill side of things, we can automate either phone calls or texts for scheduling purposes. Because you're right, they may fill out a form and they're not in a place where they can take a phone call, or maybe they want to be around their loved ones when they do take that phone call. We can set up automated triggers where form fill is filled out, and within 10 minutes or within 30 minutes, you can automate a text message with, intake specialist schedule that they can take a look at and schedule when they feel most comfortable. We can set up a trigger where somebody fills out a form and a phone call is automated and patched over to whichever intake specialist is available or not on another call after hours. We have a voice AI function that's great for either high volume, peak hour, times where you may have all of your intake reps on other calls, or maybe even after hours. There's a gap between the hours in the middle of the night where our voice AI feature can at least collect general information, route that to either an on-call intake specialist, or queue it up for whoever is coming in and starting the shift in the morning. If you don't want to use that feature functionality, we also work with and integrate with a lot of great partners like Rollover Rep, Answering Service Care, Dialed, folks like that have that 24-hour voice receptionist.
Yeah, that's on point. We work closely with Rollover Rep as well. And typically in our dashboards, when we integrate CTM and have status call with clients, we have all the different metrics. One of them is missed call rate. And of course, you can have missed calls, but essentially you should be answering all calls. And we have a feature where if it goes over 5%, then it triggers notification for the account manager to reach out to Rollover Rep so they can enable that service. And no matter what the cost is, it's a missed opportunity and a potential life that could be helped. I like both options. I can recommend both of them. I think that's a good segue into a little bit on AI. I think you guys are cooking up so many different things. And I think maybe as a teaser, we can tell to the audience there's going to be a second round with one of your colleagues, right? Where we can go a little bit. Maybe you can expand who would we be chatting with at that point. For context, today we've laid the foundation. I would say people come to me, want to do AI. It's like you have to get the processes in place. You have to have the framework, the playbook. Once that's done, then AI can really support and enhance efforts. But otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure. So I think this is the fundamentals and the core that will go a long way, and then exploring AI afterwards. And who from your team will we be privileged to speak with on this second round?
Yeah, the cool part of what we're doing here is, the AI that we're using, that the feature and functionality that we're implementing isn't necessarily supposed to replace, right? It's supposed to enhance. So, the AI that we're using is gathering data so those admission reps can kind of focus more on the patient care and de-escalation side of things, versus that general information gathering. So, part two, we're going to have my colleague, Brian Behringer. He's been with CTM for going on 5 years now. He was an account manager for a long time, moved over to the product side. So he's our senior solution engineer and product specialist. So I know he's going to join and really kind of dig into the nuts and bolts of the platform and just cool feature functionality that we're seeing a lot of behavioral health facilities use. And if they're not using, should be using. So excited for that.
Yeah, a lot of features there. I almost feel like talking about it today, especially like, remember in the past, there was like before, there was like companies like Gong, conversational intelligence. I recommended it in my book. Even like all of these kind of things could be integrated into one platform and essentially help admission reps coach, identify patterns, shorten the admission cycle for everybody's benefit. So really excited about that conversation as well. With that said, let me ask you, what do you think the future is going to look like when it comes to admissions and call analytics? Like everybody's asking me, how is this going to be trending? Are we going to have AI answering the phones? What would an admissions department look like and how can it be optimized?
So I still think there's a huge human element piece to especially behavioral health and having a familiar voice, because sentiment matters, right? AI, it's changing so rapidly. And what initially came out like a year and a half ago when ChatGPT really started moving, it's changed dramatically, right? So I think from the call side of things, at least within the addiction treatment and behavioral health space, sentiment still matters, tone still matters. And I'm not sure yet if we're at a point where you can just fully replace humans when it comes to at least intake. So I think it's still going to help streamline, but I don't think it's going to replace. And I know Bryan was very passionate about that, and he'll kind of talk a lot more on the future of that. So keep an eye out for that part too.
Very excited about that. And I do agree with you. I think it can be tools, features that can enhance and increase the quality of the call and the overall performance, and getting folks that, because it can assess a detailed attention, certain details or aspects that a human may forget. But that report, that trust, and especially many admissions intake specialists are people in recovery. They resonate with it, they connect at a deeper level and can relate to what they're telling. That
100%
goes a long way. Very often I see the best admission specialists, they're almost building a relationship with this person, right? They were part of that journey when they took that first step that changed the rest of their life. They speak with them 6 months later. Thank you so much for answering that phone call back then. So I think that's going to be hard to replace with AI. But if AI and CTM can increase the effectiveness so more people can get access to the care that they deserve, I think that's definitely a surplus. And that's why I should embrace it and tune in for round 2 to learn much more about that.
Yes,
Bryan, thank you so much for being on the show. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thanks for sharing all your insights and knowledge. Last thing before we let you go, if any facilities, companies want to get in a hold of you and learn more about CTM and your solutions, what's the best way to reach out to you?
You can either call directly into the CTM hotline or just email me directly. It's brian.mckinstry@calltrackingmetrics.com. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me. And then we can get you set up, have a conversation, learn a little bit more about your facility and how we can help.
Fantastic. Make sure to do that, folks. It's a great investment and we can help along the way. Bryan, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary. Have a good one. See ya.
Thank you for tuning into the Elevate podcast. If you liked the content you heard today, make sure to subscribe to the channel and share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next show.